All right, so welcome to assignment number 2. This is detail sketches. I'm going to go through each of the 32 steps that I have laid out here inside of the assignment. So I want you to start by reading the following PDF. It's the Craftsman section of the American Field Guide to American Houses, or a Field Guide to American Homes. In here, there's a series of images that kind of illustrate what types of details these homes are looking for, as well as what type of details that are associated to each type of craftsman that you're building. I understand that you're not building a two-story house. However, a lot of these details can comply on a single-story home. So I want you to be aware of some of what these details are by reading that PDF and going through and researching, not only by reading the PDF, but also by Google searching craftsman's homes, driving through Bozeman, and just visually getting an idea of what craftsman homes look like, and then interpreting that into this assignment. From there, you're going to look at potentially some crown molding. That's an example of one detail that I've given that you can begin to look at, and thinking about what sort of pieces exist for the craftsman character. I want you to do Google research, library research, etc., and find characteristics and details that you want to incorporate in your design for this semester project. Once you've done that, you'll begin selecting 5 of those details from the PDF or from your research of the craftsman character and sketch them out on your 12-inch flimsy. You're going to scan all 5 details that you've drawn to your computer. It's ideal that you mark up and label what each piece of detail is rather than just sketching just an image. But for this assignment, if you decide that you want to just sketch an image, I'm okay with that. I haven't shown you how to draw leaders yet and annotate up a detail, so that's why I'm accepting this way. From there, you're going to store your flimsy drawings in a protected notebook for submission at the end of the semester. I want you to research this link on AIA standard line weights. This is written by an architect. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And it basically explains what he's done in his practice to sort of explain these layers. So there's a series of about 68 to 69 different elevation, title block, title text, different layers. And I want you to just kind of get the base layers built out. And I'll kind of show a rough example of how to begin this process, as well as where these are located. And then I want you to basically interpret that into Revit. So go ahead and read through this PDF, get familiar with what these details are, understand why the architect is taking this approach. Disregard these layer styles that they have right now because Revit only uses 1 through 16. I'll have a better definition next Tuesday in class after the assignment's submitted of what those are, and then you'll be expected to put those in once I've explained it. But for now, just setting up the base framework is going to really help you out. And so once you're finished with this, we'll step back to the assignment, and you're going to go to Manage Additional Settings, Line Settings. So I'm going to open up my project, which I asked everyone to create a file called A Home for Mr. Peterson. So it's just going to look like this. It's a .rbt file. You're going to go into your Manage tab up top here, Additional Settings, and I want you to go to Line Styles. Once you're in Line Styles, you're going to notice that there's only a category called Lines. Inside of Lines, you're going to expand that out, and you can see that in this particular project, there's a series of layers that are created. This is what I want you to create. Now, in here, I've been having some graphic issues with my computer, but for the most part, you guys should all see new. In here, you'll create a new one under the subcategory of Lines, and you'll begin kind of naming these out to match those 68 different line styles. Do not overwrite these existing ones because these are preloaded and preset with inside of Revit. And if you start to begin to overwrite those, you're going to basically lose track of what the original settings were. And then we'll go into, like I said, what the values of these should be once we've explained what 1 through 16 actually means. And then from there, we'll start to really dial in what these line weights are and what they're supposed to be. So for now, just build that list. Pretty simple, 0 through 68. I think the most tedious portion of that is going to be just typing in those values and understanding what those values are. This can evolve over time, and part of this exercise is basically just to kind of teach you what line weights are inside of Revit and the value and control and power you have by initially creating this list and using these lists for creating families, adjusting your personal style when you're design drafting, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to close out of this and go back to the assignment, because that's essentially what you guys are going to be able to do or be doing. I'm going to go move down to number 12. It says research drafting views. I've attached this link. You'll open up this link in a new window, or the same window, however you decide to open it. And this basically goes over what drafting views are, how to create them, and the importance of them, and also how to save them to an external project, and so on and so forth. So I want you to go through, dissect this information, disseminate it, understand what the power of a drafting view is, and we'll go over a little bit more of that in class on Tuesday. And then begin by creating 5 of those drafting views by going to View Drafting View inside of your Revit application. I did say all details should be labeled with the correct detail name and add a 1.5 inch scale. And then in class I said that they could be not to scale. What I mean by that is when you open up Revit and you scroll down in your project browser on the left here, you can assign and create these detail views. And so to do that, you're going to go View, Drafting View, and then you'll assign what that value is. If it's not to scale, go ahead and do 12 inch equals 1 foot. And then that way it's 1:1. And that way your scan is identical. You'll create detail 1, space dash space, whatever the name of that detail is. And then you'll hit OK. And once you've hit OK, it'll create this view down below, which in this particular instance, I'm looking at sheets. So what you want to do is you want to look at drafting views. So detail 1, name of detail. This could also just be the name of detail. So it could appear like this. Either way is fine. In this particular example, you'll notice I created a series of about 8 different drafting views. Bubble Plan 1, Bubble Plan 2, Bubble Plan 3. So those are the 3 scans from assignment 1. The 5 scans from this assignment. So my exterior porch detail column, my gable bracket, interior door casing, interior tapered pillar, interior window trim. That essentially encompasses those 5 details. For Bubble Plan 1, I imported Bubble Plan 1 to Bubble Plan 1. So just inserting the image. Bubble Plan 2, same thing. You'll notice that Bubble Plan 2 is inserted, and then Bubble Plan 3, which will load here. Now, one way to ensure that you've done this correctly is after you've gone through and created your 8 drafting views, you're going to come up top here and insert an image. This image is going to be located from your file browser, wherever you've scanned those files. And once you insert the image file, you can go to Manage Images, and from here I can actually see where these images came from and what is baked into this particular project. In this example, you can see that I've imported these 5 details. In this case, I actually had a duplicate, so I can go ahead and actually delete that. I don't recommend having duplicate files inside of your application, and the reason for that is if you have duplicate files for JPEGs, it can bog down your program, as in like basically create a large file size. So with that being said, you're going to go through, you've sketched out your details, you're going to insert that image on this drafting view. So if I unhide the view, I'm going to hit this light bulb here, and you're going to notice that this sketch is available. So if I highlight it and say unhide and view elements, currently it's pinned, which doesn't mean anything because I can adjust the visibility. I've gone in and I've traced this detail, and once I've traced that detail, I can then hide that image. So that's essentially what you're going to do. You're going to make sure you're 12:1, which is actually 1:1. And that means that whatever this was scanned at, you're drawing at the same size as what you drew it on this sheet of flimsy. That's the importance of scanning it rather than using your cell phone as well. Because if you use your cell phone, it's going to be too large of a file and it's just going to create chaos. So I've gone in, I've inserted my images, I've traced them, I've then gone in and hidden these so that they're not visible when I place this view on a sheet. And so you can see that this is all hand sketched out. Now, one thing that's important to note is in this particular example, I have not associated different line weights. That's okay for this exercise. I'm not going to look for that, as well as annotations. I haven't asked for those, so for now I just want you to trace using detail lines. So to trace that, I use the annotate detail line, and then under detail line you'll notice now that those line styles have been created that they're all actually visible above here. So I have basically 1 through 68, or the total of 69 different layer styles. So if I was drawing a detail, I could select what those detail components were and associate those to these line styles. Now I haven't associated weights to these, and therefore that becomes irrelevant for this particular assignment, because I just basically want you to have the understanding of scanning a detail section in, tracing it using conventional line work. In this particular example, everything's drawn in thin lines. That's perfectly okay. And then from there, I've gone down and I've followed my sheet context and sheet layer style, or sheet layout style, attributed to, I believe, demo 6 or 7 inside of the Gallatin College Revit book. All of these are now inside of that Revit file with the correct sheet naming conventions, so that when I start drawing this, I have sheets to associate it to. And then when I scroll down, I've created 5 detail sheets. I did not create 3 for the bubble diagrams, just because that was not part of this assignment. However, I could have done that. In this particular example, I just created sheets for those particular details. So I put my interior door casing on here, my gable bracket is on this one, my exterior porch column is on this one, interior window trim, interior tapered pillar, those are all associated to this. I can edit this title block, so if I were to double click this or hit edit family up top here, I can open up the family and create my own logo, adjust the client name, project name. We had discussed not editing the labels. The reason for this is because the edited labels reference the project information that are associated inside of your base templates for Revit. So don't mess with those. We'll go ahead and leave those alone. But these are the sheets that I'm looking for. I want a custom logo, client name, project name, sheet name, so on and so forth. You're going to save that to your USB drive that you're going to bring to class, load that into your project, associate those views to each of those title block sheets. And to do that, if I delete this particular detail off of this sheet, you'll notice that there is nothing on it. So I should have 5 basic sheets with no views. If there's a view on there, it's going to show up like this. In this particular example, there's not, because I deleted it. So we're going to go ahead and pull in, if I scroll back down, interior door casing. I'm just going to drag and drop that detail view onto the sheet. You'll notice it's 1-to-1, and therefore this is going to fit on the sheet because it's traced to the size of the sheet flimsy that I drew it on, and it's shown as illustrated. You want to make sure that you have your drawn by name on here. Checked by will be my name, so we'll actually associate just Brian Nickel, and then that way it's checked by me. The assignment date on all of these you will assign for when the assignment is due. For this particular example, we're just going to call it Project 1 because it's Project 1. And that's pretty much the extent of what I'm looking for from this assignment in terms of details. Let's go back to the assignment overview to ensure that we've gone through the entire list. We've associated the view drafting view. We created the 5 views that were associated 1-to-1. Once the drafting view is created, you will have a blank page to begin working on. You'll sketch up the series of 5 details. It would be suitable to have some sort of dimensions or some sort of like leader lines that associate what materials are associated to that detail. For this example, or for this assignment, I'm not super concerned about that at this point. However, it would be helpful if you did that and got it laid out in that fashion. Step 20, you're going to select the scanned image and pin the image in place. You will then select the Select Pin Elements button. That is associated on the bottom right here. So by highlighting or highlighting. So if I go in to the actual detail of interior door casing, and I say select pinned elements, I can't see the pinned element at this point in time, but if I were to unhide it, I would then be able to actually select it. So in this particular example, I can't select it. Now I can. That's going to help trace better. If I unpinned it, that's how I could delete it. But once it's pinned and once this is turned off, that ensures that I can trace right over it without any sort of conflict. So just keep that in mind. And if you have any questions leading up to Tuesday, I'm here to help. I've helped a number of students already. That is my role here. I really want to help you guys out. I want to make sure you're on track. If there's anything critical that's holding you up, text me, email me, call me. I'm totally cool with that. I'm moving on to step 24. Once the image is pinned in place, you can begin tracing by using annotate detail lines. If I go back to Revit and I turn off the light bulb to reveal hidden elements, I can actually annotate detail line, and it's right here. So I'm just tracing using thin lines at this particular point. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Again, the biggest holdup's probably going to be the time that it takes to generate the 5 details, scan them in, and put them into the computer. From there, you're going to create the 5 drafting views with the correct detail name and attach each image to each corresponding drafting view in your A Home for Mr. Peterson Revit file. The point of this is that we're starting to build this while we're working on the Gallatin College file. So keep that in mind. This is a semester-long project. Your homework is basically being put into your overall assignment. And basically, by the end of the semester, through weekly submittals, we should get through this project fairly quickly. And each assignment's just going to be built right on top of the last one. So from there, we'll create the 3 additional drafting views that contain your bubble diagrams. That's just the ones that I had shown you. So just simply creating these so that it stores that information. These are going to be used in a future point to where we can actually use our walls to begin to actually trace over this file if we wanted to. And the point of this is just to illustrate that you can bring your hand drawings into this platform and actually build a really nice set of drawings that references the natural hand. And that's the biggest point of this assignment, is just understanding that. You're going to trace all 5 detail sketches using those Revit detail lines, which we've gone over a couple times now in this video lecture. Inside of the drafting view, you're going to hide the images of the sketches in the drafting views so that when they're associated to a sheet, like they're shown here, when I hit detail 1, there it is, there's nothing behind it. That way I can't see what those sketches are. However, when I'm reviewing your assignments, I will be able to come in here, hit the Insert tab, Manage Images, and I'll be able to actually visually look through what images you've submitted. So moving on to the next step, real briefly here, you're going to hide the images of the sketches in the drafting views. You're going to print each detail view to a PDF and submit all 5 printed detail line drafting views to PDFs to D2L, and you're going to upload your Home for Mr. Peterson Revit file. It's a total of 20 points, meaning you're going to have 10 points for your drafting view PDFs and 10 points for your Home for Mr. Peterson file. I'm going to basically just go through this list and verify those. Any points that are lost would be if you didn't follow this video to a T or you didn't follow the instructions to a T. So 10 points for the 5 detailed drafting views and 10 points for uploading the progression of your semester project. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me or call me. As mentioned before, I'm here to help you. I think this assignment's pretty straightforward. It shouldn't take you more than 3 to 4 hours max, minimum 2 hours. I would just say put forth as much detail as you can now so you're not adding detail later. Thank you for your time. Message me if you have any questions. Tuesday, we're going to go over the assignment in class, reviewing some of the elements that I've talked about here. That's essentially going to be your line weights and associating those values to the 68 line styles. I know a lot of people were kind of concerned about having to create 68 line styles, but once you get through this and you start creating it, you'll realize how quick that goes. So thank you for your time. I'm really proud of some of the work that I'm seeing. Keep it up, and I'll see you in class on Tuesday. Thank you.